How can you invest and make money in today's real estate market? Welcome to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk with successful real estate investors, business owners, and busy professionals on their journey to wealth. They share their best ways and advice to make massive gains in today's market. Make sure you are subscribed so you never miss an episode. Now, here is your host, Doron Nissim.
Welcome everyone to the Successful Investor Show, where we talk about how to passively invest and create passive income and generational wealth. I'm your host, Doron Nissim, and today I have the pleasure to welcome our guest, Christal DeBoer. Good morning, Christal. How are you doing?
Good morning, Doron. I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you?
I'm great. So Christal is with Live Oak Capital. She's been involved in real estate in the last 25 years in marketing and sales. And over the last few years, she's been involved in commercial real estate, in apartments and self-storage. She's managing more than 405 apartments and 600 self-storage units, which is amazing. She loves helping and educate others and offer them opportunities to invest in secure and stable income commercial assets. So welcome, Christal. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate the invite.
That's great. So tell us your background and how did you start in real estate? It's been probably a long journey.
Yeah, great. Well, I was more on the residential real estate side. So I grew up, my dad was a realtor. He was a real estate investor that started building a single family home portfolio when I was a teenager. And so I kind of saw firsthand the amazing benefits of real estate and how powerful it was as a tool for building wealth and financial stability and future, security, because as a realtor, no one is putting away for your retirement except for you. And so I watched my dad, kind of navigate those waters. And so I got my license when I was in my early 20s and then just stayed in the industry in some fashion for the next while I was having kids and building a family and doing all that. And so, but a couple of years ago, I guess, 2019, 2020, before COVID, before everything hit, I had decided to transition into commercial real estate and had gotten involved with some multifamily projects and saw, wow, this is next level from single family homes. And if you really want that multiplication factor, this is the place to be. And from there, I went into apartments and then got my feet wet with self-storage and realized I really loved that as well. And so it's been a journey from there.
Wow, that's a great story. You had a background from your dad and you saw how it goes. And I love that transition from single to multi and commercial, because you see that single families and residential is great, but then you say, what's the next thing? And you want to go to the next bigger thing. So in your journey, you were a real estate agent and you helped a lot of people, but was there a moment that you thought, this is what I want to do? I want to invest in real estate and I want to move my career forward instead of just doing the sales?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I had, my mentor was talking to me about long-term. What's the plan long-term? What are you doing to make it so that in, 10 to 20 years, you are in a great shape and your family's in great shape and you can take care of them. And so that really got my wheels moving from the, hustle of the daily hustle and just like churning versus doing hard work now that will pay off later. Right. And so, because we know like in multifamily, in self-storage, you're not making a ton at the beginning. Like, you are investing and sometimes, you come on those amazing properties that you do have great cash flow right off the bat. But a lot of it is it's small cash flow in the beginning. And then as you build your equity, when you go to sell, those kinds of things, you have those big windfalls. And so, so that it was like, this is the best vehicle for moving my net worth from here to here in a short amount of time. And so that is what really made my brain kind of blow open that this is amazing. And my mentor was working on doing syndications and things like that, which is where a group of investors pool their money together and then invest in a property. And so, these multi-million-dollar properties, it's very rare. It's one person doing it. And so I was involved in one of those to begin with as more on the investor side, the passive investor side. And it was like, oh, this is amazing. And so that got my feet wet for, I want to be an active investor. I want to be on the side that is doing the work, finding these deals, putting them under contract, operating them, bringing in other people, putting their money to work. And so it just was kind of a light switch moment of, this is what I want to do. And this is where I'm really going to be able to move quickly and effectively.
Wow. So yeah, you touched on a good point, having a mentor. And actually your mentor he wasn't a real estate agent, he was an investor. So from having a job as a real estate agent, he transferred you or moved you to being an investor because that's what he's doing. It made you look long-term instead of the daily hassle, selling and finding a listing and doing that. So
right. And I really, and actually like at that point, I was out of the buying and selling. I was doing more marketing, doing more remote, like helping with websites, marketing in the real estate side, but I wasn't doing the active buying and selling because I had 4 children, just a ton going on. And so it was more like, okay, this is the next step. Instead of jumping back into residential, let's move into a way more effective industry.
And mentor can help you, transform your career in very short period of time from something much bigger. And it's a good point to have. And also having goals. What's your long-term goal? It's a very important thing in any business. So, you've done a lot of business and a lot of deals. So what's the best deal that you've done so far?
Well, I would say my best deal, all of them, not all of them are amazing, but like my first deal was probably my favorite deal because it was my first deal. It was my baby. I found it. I put it under contract. I negotiated the seller financing. And I was able to do it really with no money out of pocket, which was just amazing for me to see, okay, this is possible to do. It was a 42 unit. Purchase price was $2 million, negotiated $400,000 in seller financing, which was essentially the down payment. And so, we still had to get the loan from the bank, and we had to do, I've had a partner that could be my loan sponsor that could qualify for that large loan, and they got equity as a result. But the majority of I didn't have to give any, no investors were in that except for me and my loan sponsors. And so that was a very exciting deal because there you can kind of keep the cash flow in-house, keep everything, and the seller financing was a huge component of it because it was a very big value add project where we knew that we could raise the rents. We knew that it needed CapEx, that we negotiated a repair credit. And it was just, went from 2 million to, we're 2 years into that project. And so either probably the 3-year we'll refinance or the 5-year, depending on where our rates are. In another year, I'm not sure if it'll be the best to refinance. We have the option of doing it at year 3 or year 5. So that's my favorite.
Nice.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
How did you find that deal?
That's a great question that I get asked a lot. And I like to just set expectations for people because, everyone says the magic of the first deal that, that first deal is the hardest. And so I started my education, learning the industry, learning the lingo, learning how to talk to brokers, how to recognize deals, how to chase them down, how to go direct to sellers. I took about almost 6 months of just learning it and studying it. And so during that 6 months, I was in the process of calling sellers, calling brokers, getting my name, networking on Facebook, doing all those kinds of things. And so this deal came to me through Facebook, through a networking through that. And I wound up being direct to seller, got in front of the seller, talked to him. He liked me. That's where the seller financing piece came in. And I will say my mentor, I brought him in on those phone calls. He helped a lot. It wasn't just me because I was shaking, my knees were shaking, my hands were shaking. It was very nerve wracking and I couldn't believe it whenever it all came together. And now I, still have a great relationship with that seller. And so that was direct to seller, but through Facebook networking.
Wow. Yeah. Facebook for networking, it's a big game changer, I think, in the last few years, the groups. And I see something that hasn't been, it wasn't like that before, but it's like social real estate where people
Mhm.
connect and they make deals, and it's all through Facebook and social media, which is amazing. It's great. So,
Yes.
I mean, that was a great deal. Do you have any story about a bad deal that you did, or somebody that you know had?
Yeah. Well, I guess I wouldn't say bad deal, because, with these large properties, you really do not want to have a bad deal, because a bad deal equals millions of dollars in loss.
Right.
So I have not, thank you, Lord, have not been involved in a bad deal. However, I've been involved in some challenging deals where, right off the bat, so I closed my 42 unit in 2020, and then my next project was closed in February of 2021 on a self-storage facility. And this self-storage facility was a value add as well. The plan was, it was in great condition, like the actual units, but there was a lot of unused space. So instead of building, we were going to put down parking, and we were going to lay gravel, lay out slots, and add, 30 new parking spots that we could rent out. We were going to bring all of the units up to market rent. We were going to automate the whole process, put in new security gates, just do all of that you hear that people do to improve these self-storage facilities. So I was put, there were three partners on the deal, and I was the partner put in charge of asset management. And so we had a property manager that was handling it, and this was my first self-storage facility. And so I had gone through, done as much education as I can, but until you get into it, you do not know what you do not know. And you can think, oh, this is easy peasy. Oh, what's so complicated about this? And it does sound very easy on paper, but man, you get into it and it is not. And so I saw our first 3 months, we were supposed to be collecting $9,000 a month. And my manager would be like, oh no, we only collected 4,000. We only collected 5,000. It was our reserves were depleting at a very alarming rate. And I was seeing the projection of we are not okay. We are not going to make it. We're trying to take this rent roll from $9,000 to $15,000. We're going down to $4,000. We're having people move out in mass exodus,
Wow.
It is. We went from 92% occupancy to 76% occupancy in a matter of 2 months. And so I started sounding the alarms, we're not okay. This is not okay. I'm not totally sure how we fix this, but we got to get our heads in the game here. And so, we circled the wagons, and we made some very, very decisive. We fired the management company that we had. We decided to bring it in-house, and I was going to take it over because it was I know I can talk on the phone to people. I can make people happy. I can smooth this over. I can try to be really aggressive with marketing. I know marketing. And so we were we're bringing this in-house. I'm doing it, and I can control the outcomes better when I can handle it. And so the next, 2.5 months, I did not look up. I mean, I don't know how many hours I worked, but it was 40 to 50 at least a week. And when, this is supposed to be part-time, and just because we were in crisis, and it's if we don't turn this property around, we're not going to make our payments. We're not going to make our, this is not going to be good. So we did. And within a matter of 2.5 months, we turned it around, and our rent roll was to $10,000, $11,000, $12,000. And now our rent rolls at $17,000 a year and a half later. And that was one of those, it just taught me, if things are going badly, you have to be decisive, make hard decisions, and make them quickly. You do not have the luxury of months of time or, 6 months. Oh, I guess our plan's not working. I guess this business plan. It's no, you got to be watching everything and staying on it, staying on your people. So that was the bad deal, which actually turned out to be one of our most profitable properties.
Wow.
Now it is our property that it's just running like a dream. All of our weekly calls are now we have monthly calls about it. And it's just yeah, everything's great. Everything's great. It's just such a blessing. And we're at 98% occupancy now, and always a waiting list. So
wow,
it's good. Yeah.
So, when you first bought it or looked at it, your due diligence, and you saw the numbers, and the numbers were okay, and you thought it's going to go much more. So what happened that the numbers went down so much?
Yeah. So what I learned is self-storage is different than apartments, and we were treating it like it was going to be like apartments. And so the numbers were there, but it is much more of a customer service business. And not that apartments are customer service as well, because you want to keep your tenants happy, all that. However, people always need a place to stay and live. People do not always need a storage unit, right? And so that element, we needed to ramp that way up. Marketing is also huge on self-storage. You cannot just like set it and go and think you're going to be fine. Like you have to be a lot more aggressive with self-storage. And so that was the biggest thing, that we lost a lot of clients that had been like, had rented a unit for 10 years from their previous owner, but they were unhappy with the way management was being handled. They were unhappy with the transition, all the changes. You got to kind of white glove that transition. And we learned the hard way that who we had hired to do that didn't know how to do that. And so that was what happened there. We just lost occupancy, and, the rent roll declined.
Wow. It's a good point, because people usually think self-storage, you just set it and forget it, mailbox money, and you just show that it's completely a different thing. I mean, you have to know what you're going into.
You really do.
Wow. So, I mean, in today's market, the interest rates going higher and higher. And I mean, right now we're going a little bit down, but
I saw that.
But what do you think? What do you think? What are the things that you do in your business to mitigate the risk of downturn or recession or a cool real estate market?
Yeah, that's a great question. So last year my partners and I, on each one, we kind of analyzed each property and how it was doing, where we are. We sold one property last year because we sold it when the market was like super hot and doing really well. And so we got top dollar for it, and our investors made an amazing return, even though it was ahead of schedule. Like we weren't supposed to sell or refinance for a couple of years. We just decided we're not sure what the landscape is going to look like. There's not enough margins here for us to risk investor money. We want to make sure they get their returns. And so we liquidated over there. And then other ones we bought, I bought 4 facilities last year, self-storage, and 1 apartment complex. And so with those, we worked really hard to make sure our interest rates were sustainable, that they weren't like adjusting, they weren't like in a year going to go up to whatever the rate was. Right. It was like they were fixed. Made sure that we didn't have risky debt, like no bridge loans, nothing that was adjustable. Everything had to be fixed, and we had to know the property sustained that fixed income. And we were working on getting 5-year terms on things so that we have a long runway to work with here, and also just not operating out of fear. It's like there's always going to be something that feels scary and that feels like, oh my gosh, this is a bad time to buy. Oh my goodness, I don't know. It's like there's always something that can paralyze you. And so you need to make sure that you are underwriting, conservatively. You need to make sure that your partners and you are talking about multiple exit strategies, like the property we sold last year, like we sold it 13 months after we bought it. That was not the original plan, but that was the plan that got the best returns and safely exited the property, right? And so it's like always knowing, well, we can do this or we can do this. And, like with my seller financing deal in the 42 unit, I'm supposed to refinance it in December of this year. However, there's a clause in my contract that I have 2 more years to extend. I have to pay a penalty, but I have that option, so it's just like build options, build margins. Do not get yourself as a fish in a barrel. And that's when you have to like freak out and you lose money and your investors lose money. You don't want to be in that position. So make sure you're being wise, and getting counsel and having good partners.
Yeah, and it's important to have a lot of options, like you said, a lot of exit options and a lot of options. I mean, selling, renting, refinancing, and not taking bad debt or risky debt, which is a lot. I think a lot of people in the business of syndication, they're doing that in the past couple of years because they're thinking value add. We're going to raise rents and we can refinance, but now it's rough riders.
Yes. If you were too aggressive and bought, a year or 2 ago, and thought, oh, these rates are just going to, or the rents are just going to keep accelerating and the rates are going to stay, then you're in trouble right now. Right, and I do think we're going to see that this year. We're going to see some sell-offs. We're going to see some people distress sales. So that's where, I'm kind of prepping my investors, like, we're ready to go. Like we're ready so that if those deals, we can pick those up, we're in a position where we can.
There are going to come some deals. I have a friend and they bought a property, I think a year ago, and their mortgage was $35,000 and this year it went up to $65,000, almost $70,000, which is, it just kills all your cash flow. So make sure you have enough cash flow in your deals.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Because my mentor said, it's like real estate is very forgiving if you can hold it long enough, and you can like, it will come back. But if you're in that stranglehold of like, yeah, you're not covering your expenses and your debt, that's when you're waking up in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
You
You don't want that.
so.
Definitely you don't want that. All right. So we're going to move to the final round of 4 success questions. What are your 3 best success habits that you have in your business?
Best success habits. Okay. Well, I won't say that I always wake up at the crack of dawn. I do enjoy waking up early. That is something that sets my day. But if I don't, like, I get my kids off to school, and then like we'll always have that quiet time where I'm just like center looking at my calendar. I'm a Christian, so like praying over everything, trying to keep it, just get my mind in the right place so that I am set and everybody I interact with throughout the day feels that. So that's number 1, is just getting that quiet time with me. Then number 2 is surrounding myself with powerful people that are really excited, doing powerful things, doing, as they like to say, massive action, and so,
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm in a great, mastermind that just is incredible. And that, we have weekly calls and things like that. So that helps a lot. And then also just like having a mindset of giving, like, we're here to bless other people, to have a good life, but also it's like you have a good life as you're enriching other people's life. And so that's why I love the investor model of getting to work with people and see like their money multiply. Like, I'm doing all of this so that we can enjoy our people. So make sure you're enjoying your people so that you are, life is good. So that's what I would say.
That's awesome. Those are great points. So what are the resources that you use in your business?
The resources, like education kind of stuff, or what do you mean?
Websites. Okay. I mean, we already know about Facebook and your Facebook group, which you can tell us about that, because that's a great resource for people and women.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would say Facebook is huge. I do have a group on there where we do like monthly calls and things like that, and have a lot of resources on that. I am very involved in the My First Million and multifamily. They have a deal room, which is my mastermind, or not my mastermind, but the mastermind I'm in. And that deal room is where it's like 300 of us we're all finding deals, finding capital, connecting, networking. If you're in that room, like you want to do things. And so that is a resource that I highly recommend. You can reach out to me if you want to know more about it. That's for sure something. The My First Million multifamily course was the first one I took that actually like taught me how do you analyze a deal? How do you learn if this is a good property? That kind of thing. And so those are the main things. And then like, we have different platforms and things for our syndications and stuff like that. But I'd say those are the main ones. Yeah,
those are great resources, mastermind and groups and people that can help you. It's a network. It's a network game. People need to know that real estate is a network game.
It is.
So what are your 3 tips for people to making money in real estate these days?
So, you're going to make money from cash flow, which everyone talks about cash flow. Everyone has different theories on it. I do look for deals that do have cash flow. They may not have cash flow in the first 6 months to a year, but they're easily going to have cash flow so that you are insulated from, downturns and things like that. I don't buy properties based on this is going to appreciate. This is going to, I'm buying it in Dallas and in 10 years, it's going to be worth so much more just because it's in Dallas. Like, not that you can't do that. And there are REITs and other things that makes sense for them, right? In their portfolios. So I look for cash flow. I look for value adds where we can, push those up. And, you make money at the refinance, you make money at the, sale, like, obviously the sale, but then also, we do like acquisition fees. So on my first property, it's like usually acquisition fees on these bigger projects are 1% or 2%. So you're talking, on a $2 million property, a $20,000 check, a $40,000 check. So those are other ways, like when you can close deals that you can build money in. I do recommend, people if you're trying to transition into multifamily or self-storage, having something that is like income coming in so that you're not needing your real estate to produce money immediately, because it's not going to, it's just not, or it'll produce $200 or $400. Like, it's not enough to sustain you. Like, you're looking at this long-term, like in 2 years, when I first started my 42 unit, it had cash flow, but I was rolling all of it back into the property, but now like it'll kick off $5,000 to $6,000 a month just in free flow. Right. And all the main stuff is done. And so it's like those kinds of things, but that's 2 years later. That wasn't immediate, and so then you get more and more properties that are doing that. And the more you stabilize them, then you get that. So that's how I try to find deals, try to find deals you can burr, try to find things you can raise the force appreciation on them. Right. That's what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And always know your numbers. You're talking about deals. You got to make sure it's a deal.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Oh, I know. I don't even look at, I get so many deals that come in my email and I don't even look at them until because there's a lot out there that are not deals. So yeah, you've got to know how to analyze them. And that's part of your education, right? Like you need to know what you're doing. And it's not hard. It's not hard, but it is. Hard, but you got to know it.
Exactly. And you have to stick to it.
Yes.
Not fall in love with properties. Also.
Oh yeah, no. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I don't even look at the property till I've already looked at the numbers.
Exactly. Yeah. So my last question for the day is for people that have a full-time job, but they want to invest in real estate, but they have no time. What would you say what they can do today to invest?
So if they don't have time, they have a full-time job. Like I work with a lot of people like that. And I do a lot of little funny reels and things like that on Facebook where it's the last one was one thing I wish people knew, and you don't have to be a landlord to be a real estate investor, right? So there are ways, you work with people like me, I don't know if you do that or not, but people that are actually active investors and you're a passive investor. And so you participate in, putting in 50,000, putting in 100,000, whatever that looks like for you, because there are many people that have great jobs that they love and they don't want to go run a self-storage facility. They don't want to run apartments. They don't want to deal with all that, but they do know that it's stable, that it's time tested. These assets work. They've worked for years. They will continue to work. They're recession proof, or recession resistant, I should say. Nothing is proof, but I'm resistant. And so those are the opportunities that I like to bring to people where it's you don't have to ever hear a word, or not even ever look at the property. I have investors that haven't ever seen any of the properties. They just get their checks every quarter, from their part of the deal. And so you don't have to be an active investor to get passive income from real estate. So if that's what you want to do, then that. If you're trying to move into the active investor and leave your job, then that's another story. But that's what I would say. Yeah,
that's a great point. Being part of a syndication, a real estate group that invest in real estate, if you have a full-time job, but you still want to have some cash flow or build cash flow for the minute that you want to leave your job, it's a great option. And you can also learn the business without doing the active side.
Exactly.
So that's a good way to do it. Thank you so much, Christal.
You're
welcome.
This
was great. And I'm sure our viewers will get a tremendous insight from this episode. And so if people want to get in touch with you or they want to invest with you, how can they reach out to you?
Sure. So you can find me. My social is Christal Smith DeBoer on Facebook, Christal DeBoer on Instagram. You can email me at Christal@Live Oak Rental Properties. I don't know if you have a drop down, I can put my contact, but Miss Multifamily is my Facebook group. I'm always in there. And so feel free to message me through that. And I'd love to connect with you. I have a Calendly that people can, set up a time to talk to me and share with me what your goals are and how I can maybe be a part of helping that.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you so much, Christal. And
you're welcome.
We'll be in touch. Talk soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Successful Investor Show. If you're enjoying this podcast, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. That helps others find the show, and we greatly appreciate it. Once again, thank you for tuning in, and we hope you'll join us on the next episode of the Successful Investor Show.